Good evening. You're listening live to Kicking It. I'm Rob, your host. With me tonight is the real Dr. V. He's coming in from that mysterious feed from somewhere in those dairy barn in Wisconsin he likes to hang out in when he's not doctoring, I guess is the word. Tonight we're doing Earthquake, 1974 with Charlton Heston. I'm broadcasting to you live from the Pinellas Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. So, Doctor, we've got what I would call a mildly interesting film to discuss. I don't know if I'm going to call it the Xtreme Classic. So I just think it's going to be Xtreme TV because eventually it was a TV movie that had some different things to it. But Earthquake, 1974, Charlton Heston, initial impressions, go.
For being a Heston movie, it kind of moves it all that pace of all his other movies. Like if you look at Planet of the Apes, same kind of pace. You have action, you have drama, same with Soylent Green, same thing. His movies are pretty much the same beat. They're different stories though, and they're entertaining, so that really helps them a lot. I love watching his older stuff because obviously, it's the 70s and some of his stuff is from the early 60s. I'm discovering new basic actors and actresses that I've never heard of, or maybe I have heard of and I forgot they were in this movie. So then I love these old movies because then you basically branch up. You're like, you know what? I like this person. See what else they're in, and that's one of the reasons why I love movies, especially older movies, because there's so many people there. They maybe not be in the business anymore, or maybe they did something else, and it's just educational to me. But this movie, though, in particular, I love disasters movies, man. When I look at this and I look at the new one that they had with The Rock, obviously that one was a little more action, but this one was more about Charlton Heston, man. His having issues with his wife, and then him trying to hit up a little side piece,
Well, here's the thing. I was trying to think of a way to describe this film because I agree with you. I don't think it's an action film. I know there's things that happen in it, and we'll talk about those here in a moment. I think for me, the interesting thing about it when I was looking up, it was written by Amaro Puzo, who's the person that did The Godfather, as the script. And, not knowing too much about that other than it was huge, the Godfather stuff, of course. But, of course, this film, Earthquake, was massive, literally. I mean, it took in a ton of money. It's got a great cast. But I think of it as a soap opera. And just Charlton Heston is one of many actors because it's loaded. You got David Gardner in there. You got Breath of Sure guy, George Kennedy. Lauren Green in here is... he's like the elder statesman. You've got a bunch of Shaft is in here, Richard Roundtree, Victoria Principal for the Dallas fans. I don't know if this is her first movie, but she's early on. She's the one that's got the afro going on, and the drunk that we really didn't need in this movie, Walter Matthau, which it's a long movie. It's 2 hours long. They actually cut a lot out before they put some more in and filmed some more scenes to go in when they debuted it on TV a few years later. But yeah, one thing that was cut a lot in this movie was some scenes at the beginning because I think the movie opens really strong. And you said that, Charlton Heston, he's like having problems with his woman. He's like this ex-football player, stud, engineer kind of guy. He's the man. We know that. But his wife, she's obviously a drama queen. There's a lot of anger, resentment between them. And what you don't really know in this movie is that some of the scenes they cut out explain it. And that is this. His wife, Remy, I guess she was pregnant, had an abortion, but told him he had miscarried, something along those lines, basically deceived her husband about what was going on with their child. And so that's why he hates it. Because right off the bat, she's like drinking and she fakes a suicide, and he's calling up like a doctor buddy saying, yeah, she did it again. And he's like, wow. I mean, so it starts off on this very soapy vibe. I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with, an earthquake? Because when the title's Earthquake, we want to see a bunch of earthquakes, which we do see. So, yeah, strong open here to it. What did you make of that?
Like I said, you said it basically described this as basically was a soap opera at the very beginning. This was like, okay, I thought this was a disaster movie. When are we getting disaster? It's like, and to me, the movie really didn't pick up until the scene where the guy goes to inspect the dam. He's like, he's like, yeah, I'll go check the base. And the guy's like, well, and the guy comes back. And he's like, dude, are you there? You there? Opens, and I'm like thinking like, oh man, something bad's gonna happen. He pushes the elevator button for the dam, goes up, water comes out, and here comes the bunny, just floats out. The old guy, and and he rips his shirt open, and he's dead. So I'm like, so now it's just like, oh my, with all the earthquakes, they hit like at least 2 tremors. So I'm thinking, oh man, is the dam gonna burst? As you're watching this movie, because that would be disastrous.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to. It's just, the thing that was good about this movie early on too is, you're introduced to a bunch of different characters, and it is a nice ensemble, but you also get to see the locations of what's going to get destroyed. So I think some of the issues people have with this movie as it's aged is, the effects aren't nearly that special, but there's some okay paintings in it, but the dam's going to go. But early on, you get some rumblings early on, you get some things happening, and pretty quick, you see all of the other characters. To me, I think the actual stand-up performance in this movie, though, is not Heston. It's not his wife. It's not even Gardner. It's not Laura Green. It's not any of the names other than Mr. Breath of Sure Man himself, George Kennedy. He's chasing some dude, goes out of the city limits, punches the guy. He's beside himself. This is a guy who's just bred to kick ass in this movie. And I thought, man, if you just spliced all this George Kennedy scenes out together, you'd have a fantastic little film. And I'm like, man, I think TJ Hooker would take him. But after watching, him just kick ass in this movie, I'm like, I'm not so sure now. But yeah, George Kennedy was really strong in his role. He plays a guy that's having some serious anger issues and management issues. But that's one thing about this movie too. The soap opera stuff is serious enough where you have almost the doom and gloom of the earthquake in the background. So that's almost like the relief time when you don't have to watch all the petty soap opera nonsense that's going on between some of these people. And there's some dark stuff in there. There's the sex crazed dude who is trying to rape Victoria Principal towards the end.
Yeah. That guy is just why
for.
She's in there. And if you don't know who Victoria Principal is, she went on to be in Dallas.
Yes.
Till 1987 when she left the show. But she's in there. She's looking cute, and she's kind of like, you know what? I know I don't have enough money for this time, and like, so she's gonna put it back. And here comes this creepy guy. He's like, hey, it's all right. Next time you can pay. I'm like, first of all, he's got a handle of mustache and crazy wild curly hair.
Hey, that's the 70s. That was good.
But the way
just saying.
I'm just saying he stepped out of a bad porno where he's gonna play the bad guy in the porno. So
this is back when adult films were actually, at theaters. So but I can't say.
But from right there, the guy played the creep well. I'm not sure if he didn't have to do much acting, which is really bad on his part.
Liberal use of the word fag as an insult in here because he apparently had a bunch of bodybuilder pics and lifted weights, although he didn't act swishy or like that. But that's the whole thing that kind of sets him over the edge, is he gets taunted by some other National Guard members, and then he ends up like taunting them back about it, calling them gay because they had stole jewelry. But then he opens up the gun on him. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, man, this is just not nice, Other than George Kennedy saving everybody and beating the crap out of people and then barking at people orders, I'm like, okay, here we go. This is what's going on. Because let's be honest, Heston has a guy that works with him, or had one, I should say, who died, and he's going over because he was an ex-football player to give his friends, his co-worker's buddy, a signed football of him with the Frank Gifford, who was a stud quarterback for the Vikings, a scrambler. And of course, as soon as you see her, she's going to sex him up. And of course, they make sweet, sweet love, and they have a discussion about it, and that what their plans for the summer get interrupted because he accepts a promotion because his father-in-law is the guy that runs the company, but his wife set it up. It's like, just get to the destruction, please. Am I wrong about that?
I mean, I'm not kind of complaining with Genevieve Bujold, I think her name is, playing Denise Marshall. She's kind of hot when you first see that robe, and right there and there, I was like, dude, like, if she's not a bigger star back in this thing, I'm thinking like, wow, because wow, I mean, she does not look like a dime a dozen, as people say, yeah, I've seen better or whatever. I'm like, dude, I thought when I saw her, I pictured about what kind of role she would be in like today if she was, that young at her age,
Right.
Yeah, cause I mean, like, I look at her like Sofia Vergara, what is, where it is, and they're both beautiful women. They both can do different roles. This, man, that's one of the things I look at these old movies. I like looking at the actors and actresses and trying to picture what would I cast them in today. Because obviously these people back then, looking at them, have better acting chops than what the people I've seen today.
You know, there's an argument for that could be made, and I think that's something we'll have to consider in other movies. And a lot of people think of, like, say, William Shatner or even Charlton Heston as people that overact, but they're both Shakespearean trained. And here's one thing that I definitely wanted to mention, because I found myself doing this in this movie with Heston, because I've always done it, first of all. But we had talked about in Where Eagles Dare, Richard Burton, his charisma on screen, and you look at him and you go, he's not necessarily remarkably physically impressive person coming out at you, so you go, wow, this person's got a nice body, or I'm attracted to the way they move, or a glimmer in the eye, like a Steve McQueen. But Burton had that way of speaking where he'd finish every word and he could connect it really well. And Heston's excellent at this too. And so I found myself going, man, I keep watching and listening to Heston, but to your point, a lot of heavyweight actors back in that time, because they acted in film first, then eventually turned to TV. Yeah. Which was considered like a step down. You did one or the other back then. Now it doesn't seem to matter. But I would sit there and suggest to you, I look at people today and go, could they be in a movie like this? Because I'll be honest with you, I refused to watch the St. Andreas movie with The Rock, because I figured it'd be a CGI thing. And while there's some things that probably look really good in there and the action's okay, there's just something about the larger than life nature that Charlton Heston had built up to the point of him starring in here that I totally buy him, as an ex-football player, smart guy engineer, alpha male sort of dude that you look up to, positive role model. I'm not saying The Rock's not that way, but I always see The Rock, and I still see The Rock from wrestling. That's not a knock.
Well, I understand your point with the remake, or basically, which almost kind of was a remake. Well, they changed it a little bit. The Rock, yes, The Rock, he's not believable as an actor. First of all, no standard guy is that physique, and they always try to incorporate that into the movie. It's like having a John Cena. Well, I work out a lot, it's like, that's your dad? Yeah, whatever. It's like no one. I would rather have someone who's, well, I would say Heston's in perfect shape. He's not overly about it, but I can tell he wasn't using steroids for the past 20 years.
Right.
Even people look at Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, he works out. There's a lot of people that work out. Matt Damon, and they don't have like super huge build physiques. And I think having a bodybuilder physique, kind of like Arnold's, limits you to certain roles. And I agree with you as far as the new one with San Andreas, which came out like 2013 or 2015 or whatever, or somewhere there. But yeah, when I see him in roles like that, where he's supposed to supposed to be like, oh, it's my dad, and something like, I'm like, first of all, you look nothing like Alexandra Daddario. She looks nothing like you. So second of all, so that's BS right there. Unless that's her stepdad, But even then, it's like him trying to be him, daughter. I can't, man. It's like see, it's steroids allegedly, says Eric Breen. Hello, sir. Yeah, it's just, I like the other guys who basically don't look like they just walked out of a Slim Jim commercial, and then they're basically gonna say, "Air protein shake," and like
it's always the same. White rice, broccoli, and boneless, skinless 6-ounce chicken breast, and you're good to go. Maybe a handful of nuts as a snack, and bottom line is he's probably pounding 10,000 calories a day to keep that physique up, rather than the average guy might be 2 to 3 if you lift a little bit. Do you even lift, bro? I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, but when I see people like The Rock, I think of them being like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're typecast to being a robot for the future. It's like, that's my, or what was the other one? Predator.
Mm-hmm.
But seeing him like in trying to be like a normal guy, like, yeah, that's my dad, normal guy. I'm like, dude, no, sorry. Mark Wahlberg is like better at being the normal guy, not being the dad. Why?
Well, he's got his going for him. He's got, like I say, his presence. He's not ugly, but he's not pretty. But he looks like older male. He doesn't look like, he doesn't look like a pretty young guy that's trying to stay looking young, and he's 40 years old and all that too. So that's important. And, you know, you mentioned earlier before talking about the way people look in this film, and the 70s styles that, you know, got a strong thing going on. He's rocking a bunch of brown suits. The ladies wore mid-length stuff in the office, but the guys' suits were pretty much spot on. They had the half-inch white collar showing. You had a lot of mutton chops in here too, especially Roundtree Shaft's got character in there, the guy trying to do the stunt and everything, talking about Evel Knievel a lot of times. But, you know, it's a film that does capture the 70s pretty well, just as far as, like, if you look at it and you reminisce about what's going on, the way they talk. Like, I see some language is dated. I think obviously they dealt with adult themes, as we talked about early on. Within 5 minutes, you're like, what, faking a suicide, and you're not quite sure why. In the extended cut, you might get scenes about the abortion. He has the affair. He's talking about going away for, you know, the summer to do a project in Oregon, and he wants his mistress to come with him. And then she says, no, I didn't come up there to see her. I came up there to see you. So no, you didn't take advantage of me. I seduced you. And it's like, yeah, that's right. Everybody knows it. But like today's world, everybody wants to act like males are predators in movies. And it's like, you know, that's just kind of like, yeah, everybody understood it was an inter-office romance, and the wife was just real manipulative, and she still wanted to keep her husband. She didn't want to get divorced, so she arranged for him to get the promotion at the company by Lauren Green, who was in on it, then ended up dying. So not necessarily a lot of happy endings for most people in here, other than, of course, the single mom who happened to have been widowed towards the end, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I wanted to mention this because apparently it was a big deal at the time, and I don't know how much it was, because I remember seeing this on TV, and it was a spectacle to see something like this over a couple of nights, and I didn't understand the importance of it. My parents would told me about it, how when you saw a movie, I think on old film, if I have it correctly, you'd have the sound attached to it, so it's an analog signal, if you want to think of it that way. Now everything is digitized. But what they did somehow is they had something called like Sensurround, that was a special sound thing that went with it. And they had low frequency sounds, which are your rumblings, your deep bass, that are just below the level of you hearing it. But they put it at such a way so it added to the sensation of like an earthquake when the earthquake scenes would come on. And apparently only a couple movies in the 70s used this technique, and it was brand new at the time. So they added some gimmicky sound to it, which, by what few accounts I came across the past few days, people seem to go, yeah, it really, really worked. It really, really added to the film, but it wasn't something that they continued to do. So I applaud everybody for wanting to jump on board the disaster movies thing, because this is super hot at the time. And frankly, there's something likable, I think, about what I would call disaster films that, in my opinion, I would rather have be a soap opera than a disaster movie that's man is evil, we're destroying the planet, eco-terrorism, you know, shame, 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 everybody needs to die, population control, sci-fi nonsense, which is 90% of it. But that's just me. What would you rather have, the soap opera or the other stuff?
Well, I like both movies equally. I love action. I gotta have action in this movie, you know, and also I'm a fan of happy endings. I don't need to watch a movie about people dying just to see the person who is supposed to be like the main actor die. That's depressing. I don't need that. I mean, there's enough of this crap in real life. I understand. Yeah. I understand. Yes, people do die in these situations, you know. But I thought compared to the new one, this one was kind of a horrible ending. Whereas we're in the other movie they had with The Rock, where the bad guy dies, the good guy lives. So why is the good guy? No, and I stretch it when I say he's a good guy in this, you know, Stuart Graff, Charlton Heston, because he kind of was cheating on his wife. But I mean, but he has a sense. He's like, you know, I gotta go back and I gotta go after her, and it cost him his life. To me, that kind of ruined the movie for me. It's like, dude, Heston's the man. Heston should have survived. He should have been, you know what? She's already gone. I got something else going here. It's good, and I'll, you know. Because he didn't want to be in the marriage to begin with, you know. But the whole to let the apart, I don't find it believable.
It's really tough because, like I say, without the extra few minutes of the scenes of understanding why they have resentment or anger with each other, it's very difficult.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, he makes the comment to her while he's getting dressed, like I'm ready to go. You call this a marriage, and then he, you know, pretty much barks at her, and she kind of like, you know, has her bluff called about it because she's just being melodramatic and everything too. So yeah, a couple, things happen. So he just, in a moment of weakness, was seduced, if you want to think of that way. And I'm not saying it's his fault or like it's a problem, but you can totally understand why the affair happened, and maybe it was going to be a one-off or not. Who knows? Because his mistress even says that too. She goes, "Well, it makes you think this is going to continue. You know, this could just be a one-time thing or whatever." And then they talk about plans later. So that's kind of like a swerving way, because you go, well, these two are going to survive at the end, obviously, right? And then the bitchy wife needs to die because she's not likable, she's not whatever, and so it doesn't help. And we're talking about Ava Gardner here. I mean, this woman is like, this might be one of the very first like femme fatale types going back. I mean, she
back in the day, but she wasn't really fetching in this movie. And I don't care if anybody likes her.
She's older. When you're older, you don't. I think
she reminded me of dude. She reminded me of Mrs. Roper in this movie.
Oh, Mrs. Roper, how dare you, sir?
It had to be said.
Well, it's still Ava Gardner, so I'm just going to sit there and say Heston and Ava Gardner is a couple. Okay, you buy it, but then when you see what happens and all that too, yeah. So basically, at the end, everybody's connected in a sense where they all sort of kind of meet up and get saved, and some scenes. Some of the scenes look good. Obviously, the elevator scene's the really infamous one. Down here in Central Florida, Universal Studios had Earthquake for the longest time. They got rid of it, and I remember Charlton Heston did a little bit of a thing when you'd go see the Earthquake ride and the show. He'd come up for like a minute or two for something, and they'd discuss what's on, and they had you like drop down and everything. So it was kind of cool, actually. And I was, like I said, a big Heston fan, and so now I don't even know what's replaced it. But it's just kind of like sad because this movie's almost 50 years old.
Yeah.
It's not a great movie, but I'd say it's decent. It's certainly entertaining enough. It's a popcorn film. But again, the point I can't stress enough. I'd rather watch something like this where the effects maybe aren't as great as they could be now, because I think, they give you what you want. I'd rather see soap opera and how people under stress kind of react, what happens to them. And, we get this here at the end. I'd rather have that than the CGI crap, unbelievable action nonsense, like in current movies. So, yeah, let's talk about the ending scene, about not being happy. Obviously, they're in a tunnel and people are getting rescued, but water's coming through and they're trying to go up a ladder because they're in an underground station. And you got the Breath of Sure guy, you got Mr. Kennedy, and you got Heston. So it's like two stud dudes helping everybody. Hell, the men and women, or the women first, the children first, and then the men. And then, of course, at the time, his mistress is there, goes up. The kid, they drag up. And then he does go after his wife, who gets pushed away. That's the end of the movie, basically. He doesn't come back. I was surprised by that. I didn't like it.
I said, yeah, when I first saw this movie, it pissed me off. I was like, really? Does all this for real? And then he dies. Well, I guess that happens in real life, but but I was thinking, honestly, this whole movie, it makes you kind of want, it wants you to hey, we got to like this guy, even though this guy is kind of like a sleazebag a little bit. He knows marriage problems, and then other than that, as far as Stewart being the main character's movie, you also get Lou in here, who basically is played by George Kennedy. Who's to me, from the very get-go, seems like he would have been more of like the center star. Here's, this guy is a badass cop, took down a punk who hit a little girl, knocked her 15 feet in the air, killed her.
Oh yeah, he gives this great little speech about it too. And you're like,
I'm like, right there, I could care less about Charlton Heston. I'm like, I want more George Kennedy. I want him to take over. He's a tough as nails cop. He knows what he's doing. Doesn't take shit from anybody. Or Charlton Heston's kind of like, my marriage is falling apart. I'm gonna go bang this girl here, and then the last minute, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm gonna go back for my wife, who's gonna die anyway.
I know it's tough. He does the right thing in that he seemed to be yes, he cheated, but he's morally centric, and you see him going after his wife. I didn't like it either because.
Hey, as
a fan, I wanted to see Heston survive.
He
didn't deserve the wife; he deserved his mistress.
I just say, I just say this. He chose to cheat and go on Earth, and he should commit to that crap. You know what? Don't back out on that. Don't say like, oh, it was a mistake. It's like, well, you know damn what you're doing. And plus, dude, this girl's she's got a nice ass.
Stop. Yeah. Well, she's an attractive woman, and she definitely played that part.
And a lot kinder to him, and probably would have been a much better wife. Sorry, the other one was too controlling. Oh, I had some problems with my husband, so I'm gonna start faking all stuff for attention. That's called woman. Get your shit together, or
yeah, you're gonna get dropped. Absolutely, middle-aged crazy.
Yeah. No, and well, it's like, it makes sense for him to. I mean, it just pissed me off the fact that he had to die in this movie. It's like, what was the whole point of this movie? Just to watch, oh, this is the movie where he basically does everything for everybody else and dies. Okay, don't want to watch it. Move on. But
well, I believe that the actual story behind it was that Heston had some script approval powers, and so I think he wanted to change it because he felt, well, here's a guy that that cheated, and he didn't deserve, the character didn't deserve to survive and help kind of rebuild it because he's this top level engineer, and he makes comments in there about the safety of the buildings and how we should never made these 40-story monsters or whatever at the time. So it's like, okay, I mean, that's his call.
But even if that's the case, so it's like, it's still like, so basically, if he really did do that because he didn't want to play the bad guy. Yeah,
so give him a good ending, a heroic, and it's heroic because he suffers by dying, saving his wife. I'm just saying that seems to be the logic behind it. Whether you agree with it or not, that appears to be it. But yeah, definitely controversial, especially if you're a Heston fan.
Definitely. But Heston, man, Heston has to survive. He survived in Planet of the Apes, man. You can't survive this, really.
You haven't seen Planet of the Apes 2.
Yeah, I saw that.
I know.
I forget that movie. It's gone from the movie.
Well, one of my final thoughts about this movie is that looking back on, look at the numbers, 80 million, whatever it made, doesn't sound like a lot, but in late or early 74, early 70s, 1974, I think it was, that's huge. It's like the third or fourth biggest movie that year. It's about $1 billion in today's dollars. The thing was massive. It was a huge hit. I mean, you had all these movies going on that we hadn't even talked about. You had Poseidon Adventure, Inferno Tower. Later on, they get spoofed in the airplane movies, of course. But yeah, it was a nice little movie to kind of. It reminds me of what would be a really good summer movie to go see today, and come out of it going, it was decent. Ending sucked, but that was kind of cool. Got to see Heston, enjoyed it. There's nothing in here that really pissed me off, and I did appreciate the fact that it seemed to have a dark, serious tone through all of it without too much gimmicky stuff. And I thought it was paced fairly well, especially for like a 2-hour movie. So overall, I'd say it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. If you want to revisit it one time, it's okay. It's not bad. It's decent. It's still better than a lot of stuff today, I would say, but that just shows the quality of how a lot of movies do. I think overall not as good as older ones. Even if the older ones aren't great when you revisit them, they're still not bad, especially when you got this kind of star power. My goodness. Definitely a good tone to it. I appreciated that. I liked that it wasn't silly and stupid. What about you?
Like I said, it's a good movie for what it is until you find out that he basically dies at the end. And that to me doesn't set well with me because I just thought it was a stupid ending. It's like he's the main character, but you're gonna have him die at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, are we going for Oscar, bro? You shot me. You really shot me. I think of Jim Carrey in The Mask. It's like people, and that's the trope of actors wanted I gotta have that great death scene. And then I'll be remembered forever. It's like, nah, dude, you just got swept in the sewer gate. You went out with the sewers.
Well, I had a flashback when he looks up and then you see his mistress face and they cut down to Heston and he gets swept away. What immediately came to me was was executive decision with Seagal. Yeah, you're gonna live. You're not. If hold on, you're not gonna live or whatever. And he goes, you are, and then he dies. I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, when he's in a stealth bomber. Yeah, it's like stealth fighter. He's like, don't worry. He's like, he's gone.
All right. For tonight, we wanted to cover Earthquake. We're big Heston fans. Putting this in a kicking at the action category. May do something else. It's not the end of disaster films. There's more of those to cover, but we definitely wanted to get in this. I'm glad that we covered there too. Any final thoughts, Doctor, before we call it a night?
Yeah, get out of California. You won't die. Earthquakes, fires, man. There's signs, bro. You gotta pay attention to the right ones. You'll know.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for sharing. We're growing just a bit faster than what we normally have been, being over 500 subs. I appreciate the retweets, the shares, letting people know about us too. I'm hoping that by the end of this year we'll be monetized. Probably going to change the formats of a few things, add to it, get a little bit more detailed. This movie like this is something that we could definitely dive in and spend a good hour or two on rather than just going over topically. But you got any requests, leave them below. Glad that you guys are here listening to us and taking time out to do that, especially during the Corona crisis, as it was called. So we'll see what we come up here with Top 10 Tuesdays coming up soon. So for the doctor, for myself, and what, Doctor?
I just want to say, for those who are watching this on replay, or even those in the watching it now who've been watching it, if you're still here to the end, leave us your thoughts on this movie. Did you love it? Hate it? Favorite parts? Parts you didn't like? Just give us your feedback. We appreciate it, man.
All right. Have a good night, everybody. Stay extreme.